Hello and welcome to this episode of RPGGamer Top 5s. And as part of our series on the top RPGs on each system, today we're going to be doing the top 5 RPGs on the Sega Megadrive. The Sega Megadrive, called the Genesis in the United States, is a 16-bit console released in 1988 by Sega. Although it struggled in its homeland of Japan against the SNES, the Megadrive sold well in the United States and Europe, achieving sales of some 30 million units worldwide. Built around the same 68,000 processor as the Commodore Amiga and Atari ST, and incorporating a Zilog Z80 as sound controller, the same chip used as a processor in the ZX81 and ZX Spectrum. It had a dedicated video system supporting hardware sprites and a 320 by 240 resolution in 61 colours from a palette of 512. Sega marketed their console aggressively against Nintendo, with slogans such as "Genesis does what Nintendon't." They were aiming for an older market than their competitor, who would prefer the cooler attitude of Sega against the child-friendly Nintendo, a rivalry summed up by the company mascots, the cool and confident Sonic versus the cheerful and cuddly Mario. Nintendo had most of the arcade conversion market sewn up, leaving Sega with only its own catalogue of games, which, although meagre, did impressively contain Space Harrier, Altered Beast, Golden Axe, Ghouls and Ghosts and Shinobi. So Sega set out to develop their own catalogue of unique titles, and the Mega Drive ended up with some of the most interesting and innovative titles of the time, including many RPGs. But enough with the history, let's move on to the list itself. And at number 5, Blue Almanac by Kodansha Suken in 1991. First released in Japan as Blue Almanac, the US and European release was scheduled to be released as Star Odyssey, but was cancelled. Some 20 years later, a version based on a prototype was released, with a Windows and Mac conversion in 2013. In the distant future, mankind has long left the Earth and spread out all over the Milky Way. Humans settled down on different planets, sometimes coming into contact with other races, and established a connection between them. The player is Miyabi, a young man who was a mere child when he survived a spaceship crash and had to seek shelter on a new planet. Now he is 16, and his parents plan to send him to attend schooling on the planet Terra, and that is when his adventure begins. Blue Almanac is a sci-fi Japanese-style RPG. The player's party encounters random enemies and fights them in turn-based combat. The combat is viewed from a side-scrolling perspective, and both the player's and enemies' attacks are animated. At number 4, Beyond Oasis by Sega in 1994. Known in Japan and Europe as the story of Thor, a successor of the light, which is a bit of a mouthful to be honest, the player takes the role of Prince Ali, who has discovered a buried gold armlet, which once belonged to a wizard who waged a long war against the evil wielder of a silver armlet. The silver armlet was used to create chaos and destruction, while the gold armlet has the power to summon 4 spirits: the water spirit Dieto, the fire spirit Ifrit, the shadow spirit Shade, and the plant spirit Bo. Ali travels the land of Oasis, gradually acquiring the ability to summon all of these spirits, in an attempt to stop the person who has discovered the ancient silver armlet, and is once again using it for evil. The game has action-adventure elements similar to the Legend of Zelda series. The player controls Prince Ali and takes him across the maps to fulfill his quest. Along the way, the player picks up special items to restore health and magic, special weapons to help him defeat enemies, and 4 magic spirits found in shrines to aid Prince Ali's mission. And number 3, Sword of Vermillion by Sega in 1991. Sword of Vermillion is about the son of King Eric, who takes on a quest of revenge to defeat Zarkon and free the world of Vermillion from evil. The quest consists of travelling to towns and villages, battling creatures to gain experience, and finding items such as swords, shields and armour, as well as many other items such as herbs and candles. Boss monsters take the form of larger, stronger creatures which are integral to the story. Fighting boss monsters takes place in a side view of the battle, where magic cannot be used. At number 2, Phantasy Star 4 by Sega in 1993. Released in Japan as Phantasy Star The End of the Millennium, it is the 4th and final game in the original Phantasy Star series, concluding the story of the Algol star system. Phantasy Star 4 takes place 1,000 years after the events of Phantasy Star 2, after an event called the Great Collapse. Much of the once thriving planet Matavia has been reduced to desert, and life has become progressively more difficult for the planet's inhabitants. Phantasy Star 4 is an archetypical role-playing video game, featuring the staples of exploration, NPC interaction, and turn-based combat. Like the previous games in the Phantasy Star series, individual characters each have their own statistics and equipment that determine the character's performance in combat, improving their statistics by gaining experience levels, achieved through victory in combat. Additionally, non-android characters have access to techniques, which are like magic spells, the use of which draw upon a character's pool of technique points, with new techniques being learned as a character gains levels. Phantasy Star 4 has a number of features new to the series, including combination techniques, manga-style panel illustrations that accompany the narrative, and an expanded script. Notable mentions: Shadowrun by Sega in 1994. Shadowrun on the Mega Drive offers the player a far more open style of gameplay than the SNES game. Battles are real-time, and although of varying difficulty, tend to be relatively short. Initially, the player is restricted to a single area of the game, but shortly gains access to almost all other areas. Access to other areas is accomplished primarily through taxi, although various restrictions and other modes of travel also exist, such as requiring a visa or bypassing the visa check with the use of a helicopter. Luna 2 Eternal Blue by Working Designs in 1994. Luna 2 Eternal Blue is a traditional role-playing video game featuring two-dimensional character sprites and backgrounds. The game is presented from a top-down perspective, with players moving the characters across numerous fantasy environments while completing story-based scenarios and battling enemy monsters. While basic game function remains similar to Luna the Silver Star, with story segments being presented as both on-screen text and animated cutscenes, the abundance of these interludes has been increased to over 50 minutes of movie content and an hour of spoken dialogue. Players advance the story by taking part in quests and interacting with non-player characters, which engages them in the story as well as providing tips on how to advance. And at number 1, Shining Force 2 by Sega in 1993. Although set in the same universe, its storyline is not directly connected to the original Shining Force. Shining Force 2 is a tactical role-playing game. The player assumes the role of Shining Force leader Bowie. When not in combat, the player can explore towns and other locales, talk with people, and set the members and equipment of the army. Some towns have a headquarters where the player can inspect and talk with his allies. In a shrine south of Grand Seal Castle, a thief named Slade unwittingly breaks the power of a magic seal by stealing the jewels of light and darkness. This unseals the demon king Zeon, trapped therein. The following day, King Grand Seal falls sick when he is attacked by an unknown creature. Sir Astral, the court's advisor, along with his apprentices, Bowie the Squire, Sarah the Healer, and Chester the Knight, investigate these events at the castle. They find that the door to the Tower of the Ancients has been unlocked and now stands open. Bowie and friends must now travel across Parmesia to gather allies, solve the riddle of the jewels, obtain the Force Sword, and seal the door once more. And that's it for the Mega Drive. What did you think? Any ones we missed? Any favourites you'd like to suggest? Please let us know either in the comments or by getting in touch with us by email or through the website. So, as always, many thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. But most of all, you look after yourselves, and we'll catch you later. Bye.